the more informed our consumers are going to be, the more that companies need to adhere to those ethics, those ethos, because like you said, in the short term, you might get some extra revenue, but in the long term, you're going to fail.
Welcome to Honest E-Commerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest E-Commerce. Today, I'm welcoming to the show Heather Florio, the second generation owner and CEO of Desert Harvest. She leads the company over there, innovating sustainable solutions in pelvic and sexual health. Heather, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Chase, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So quickly, what are the types of products we're talking about that you guys are selling over there?
So we have a variety of different pelvic and sexual health tools, from supplements, skincare related products, vaginal health tools, even anal health tools. We have a variety of different products related to pelvic and sexual health wellness specifically.
I love it. Very niche. So typically I ask people where the idea for this business come from, but you've been around as long as it's been around. So I guess just take me back in time. Where do we want to start this conversation?
Let's go backwards to 1993 and the beginnings of the internet and e-commerce. And we were really at that time searching. My aunt had the bladder disorder, interstitial cystitis, which one of our key products is currently undergoing FDA drug trials for right now, because we have an 87.5% response rate of some or complete relief of all symptoms with just taking our capsules. So what kind of started Desert Harvest was looking for options for my aunt, treatment options, things like that. Couldn't find anything. Nothing existed. And many clinicians back in the day, in the 90s, it wasn't even considered a condition. It was all in your head. It didn't really exist. And so my aunt and my mother went to some random natural products conference, picked up some random bottle of aloe vera, which, you typically find in the health food stores, which is not what we make. But she slept through the whole night. And so my mother was immediately like, how can we concentrate this? How can we make this safe for long-term use? Because there are definitely carcinogenic compounds naturally in aloe vera. So what you see in the health food stores is meant for short-term use and digestive aids. So this was, so my mother was able to get with a chemist friend and develop the formulation that we still use to this day.
And that was the flagship product?
Yes, that was the flagship product that started Desert Harvest in 1993. And, e-commerce was just starting. And so we've kind of grown with e-commerce over the past 31 years.
Now, what was your role in the company back then, or were you just kind of around?
I was just kind of everywhere. I won't say that I was in high school, and at the end of tail end year of my high school years, and I did whatever was thrown at me essentially so that I could have money to have a car and a life and everything a teenager wants. But and it was only as hard as I worked that I could have anything. So absolutely.
And that's the kind of the small business thing, is just there are jobs to be done. You don't, whatever your title is doesn't matter.
No, yeah, I always say that. Even for employees now is really interesting. I was reading an article by the founder of Epic, the healthcare management systems, and she was saying, she's all like, I let all my employees pick their titles, and I was like, wait, that's what I do. I'm like, because I'm like, you create your title, you're doing the job, you're doing the position. We are still considered, a smaller family company. So for us, it's all about everybody finding their niche where they fit. And my kids have probably been working here themselves since birth, and now they're in their mid to late 20s and married and off and doing their own thing. So.
That's amazing. All right. So talk to me about the early days of the internet. Now, was it always kind of like internet first, direct to consumer? That was the kind of model?
Yes. So early on, it was very important for my mother. So for me, I grew up in this environment. My mother already had a successful business. She had started a secretarial services in 1980 and had grown that to being the top career expert in the United States, writing for the Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, New York Times, speaking at career, universities all over the country. So I had this entire model. And so as, we had typewriters, and then we had Selectric typewriters, and then we had the first computers in the 80s, so in my home, technology always existed because of my mother's profession. So as a result, I think it was only natural. E-commerce was starting to become a thing. It was like, this is when Google didn't exist, and you're trying to decide, like, Amazon didn't exist, and everybody was vying to be like, e-com is going to be the next great thing, and there were websites, right and left coming out at that time, and everybody was, and in my generation, I'm in high school, and at that point, and everybody is being pushed into college careers related to IT and technology, and this is where you're going to make your money. This is going to be the latest and greatest thing. And I think for that reason, because my mother was always on top of technological advances, that it just was naturally the platform that we decided to start with.
That's awesome. Now, Google didn't exist. Amazon didn't exist. I don't even think paid ads were a thing back then.
No.
What was marketing like pre-Google?
So interesting. So we had the threads, like the message boards. This is where all of a sudden patients got on and they started talking, and they still continue today on Facebook a lot and on Reddit and things like that. And this is, especially when your condition is underrepresented, under researched, underfunded. As a result, these women have very little resources. So it's predominantly women. There are men. It's about 75% women, 25% men for interstitial cystitis. So as a result, we started on these like message boards, answering questions, providing details. We started in 1993, and then we did our first medical study in 1995. And we partnered with the Interstitial Cystitis Association, the only nonprofit organization specifically related to interstitial cystitis research. So they were early on in their foundations, and so we were too. So we really kind of worked together to further interstitial cystitis as a condition, as something that needed to be researched. The Interstitial Cystitis Association was the first to get it recognized as a disability by the federal government. So many things evolved as we evolved, including pelvic health. And so that's where pelvic health really came in for us, is because pelvic floor physical therapy really started to become a discipline that clinicians were slowly starting to recognize in the 90s. But by the 2000s, we had a conference, the International Pelvic Pain Society. And we can remember there was like 75 people at their first conference. And now they have 1,500 or more at that conference.
Oh yeah. Just how things have changed in 30 years is mind blowing. So do you know the answer to this question? How many versions of your website do you think you've had?
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. So probably I have done 3 alone since 2012. So, and prior to that, interestingly enough, my mom probably only did 2 or 3 herself iterations. It was really important to me when we took over, or when I took over, it would really became like, it still looked like a website from the 90s. And so it's very important to me from a visual perspective to really bring that forward. I think that there was a gap of generational transition where my knowledge, being in school, being in college, and other things like that, and then having a different life growing up with technology than my mother, let's say, had. I think that there was a limit. Just like even now today, my oldest son works here at Desert Harvest now, and he's really starting to help me take over things on the day-to-day. And same thing, I can see the generational gap between him and I, and the ideas he has and things, and he'll take it to a whole nother level than I will be able to.
So I guess a question I have is just the early stages of the internet I love. And so did the first version of the website, could you buy it like online, or was it like you call this number? Like how did that work?
Yeah. So no, initially it had to be done over the phone. We had a merchant account. They had to run through the merchant account. We literally went from sliding credit card machines, like type things where we had to and we had to put everything down on paper, and there was no like CRM system. There was no we were using like databases to be able to manage data and everything, when you're starting with the internet back then, you've got dial up, you've got dot matrix. So you're literally to get to the back end of the website, to get to anything, you don't have a Shopify platform or things built. You're using very advanced software with coding that is having to build each section for you. And then I think our very first shopping cart was called, and I think they still exist today. I think it was called Squirrel Cart.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that e-commerce, building, back then it was almost custom to a sense where nothing like today, as far as kind of just the availability of off the shelf solutions. So maybe a question there would be or a statement you could make is just how much easier it is to be an entrepreneur these days online.
Oh, yes. I mean, you could just pick it up and do it in a second. Not back then. You really had to have or know someone who had the technological expertise to be able to use the softwares that we're building that would help you build. And I think, I forgot the complex one. It was an Adobe software. And it was, I don't even think it exists anymore. But it was a way to build, and it was the most complex thing. I struggled with that software, and I still don't even know it to this day.
I'm going to venture a guess. It was either Dreamweaver or Firefox.
Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
There
that
you go.
That was my first foray into the web development world. And it should have been my last, but here I am.
Yeah. And see, when we first started, it was just literally coding on the back end of DOS Matrix. And then we got Dreamweaver, and that made it a little bit easier. But then we had to find someone who knew how to use the Dreamweaver software. We could only do so much with it. And then when it got more advanced, we had to take it a step further. So now you literally just go online, Shopify, plug in, or similar website template type things. The e-commerce shopping cart experience is already built into the package, and you just sign up, you put in some details, you put up a logo, and you've got an e-com business.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, there's a lot to cover in 30 years, so I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to. Is there anything in that time before we kind of get to what's going on now that you think's worth bringing up?
I mean, really, the only things that have changed, obviously, are regulatory over the years and regulatory compliance. Of course, in 1993, nothing existed. And so watching the evolution of the regulatory landscape, the PCI compliance and ICANN and, things like these, those didn't exist. And there was nobody. And then when they did come to to exist. Like there was nobody to help you figure that out. So it was definitely definitely became a researcher.
A lot of people take that stuff for granted these days because
yeah.
A platform like Shopify, like it just takes care of all that stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just basically got to get a bank account. And then if you, depending on what product you want to sell, maybe you need to get something that isn't like available. Like you can't sell certain products, Vice products, or like certain pharmaceuticals on ShopPay. So you need to get a different merch account. And that's a little bit more difficult. But other than that, it's just like you said, kind of plug and play.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, even, you can even use Shopify platforms for CBD products, things like that have a regulatory gray area, things like that. So, I mean, the advancements have come a long way.
Hey, Shopify store owners. Have you ever wondered if your store is leaving money on the table? Imagine increasing sales without spending more money on ads. Sounds too good to be true. Well, it's not. I'd like to introduce you to StoreTester. StoreTester is a done-for-you conversion rate optimization service for Shopify merchants. Could your store benefit from increased conversion rates, higher average order values, and improved revenue per visitor? StoreTester could be the perfect partner for you. From ideation to implementation, this full-service A/B testing service takes all of the guesswork out of improving Shopify stores. StoreTester does all the work for you while offering month-to-month transparent fixed pricing. It gets even better. They believe in their service so much, they're offering the first test for free for qualified merchants. Let me repeat, the first test is free for qualified merchants. Curious to see if you qualify for a free test? Reach out today. Visit StoreTester.com to schedule an intro call. That's www.StoreTester.com. Schedule an intro call today to see if you qualify for a free test. Hey everybody, today's podcast is brought to you by Intelligems, the ultimate profit optimization tool for Shopify merchants. I'm telling you this, obviously you know I own an agency. We use Intelligems when we're running split testing and CRO stuff for all of our clients. Are you looking to maximize your profits? Intelligems offers data-driven solutions to optimize your content, prices, discounts, and shipping rates. Join over 500 happy clients who have seen significant improvements. With Intelligems, you gain control over your e-commerce economics, boosting your profit per visitor by an astonishing 36%. But that's not all. Intelligems users report a 54.62% increase in revenue per visitor and a remarkable rise in conversion rates. How does Intelligems do it? Through a suite of tools that allows you to A/B test everything on your Shopify store, from landing pages to product prices and shipping rates. Imagine testing new layouts, offers, even a new Shopify theme with ease. We're testing a new landing page for our client on a new theme versus an old landing page on their old theme right now. Intelligems empowers you to find the perfect price point for your products and optimize your shipping strategy. But there's more. Boost your average order value with customized campaign offers and discover if your customers prefer free shipping or a lower list price. With over $100 million in incremental profit generated, they have over 1.5 billion transactions ran through their software. They have over 400 million shoppers that have gone through their test. Intelligems is not a tool, it's a game changer for your business. Are you ready to transform your Shopify store's profitability? Book a demo today at Intelligems.io. Empower your brand to reach new heights. Again, that's Intelligems, giving superpowers to your customer acquisition, retention, and overall profitability. So let's talk about now. Obviously, I'm assuming you're doing a little bit more marketing and advertising these days as opposed to just hopping into forums and chatting one-on-one with potential customers and helping them. So what's like the typical marketing plan look like for a business like Desert Harvest?
So for Desert Harvest, we're working a lot with doctors directly all over the world. We do some email marketing, things like that, social media marketing, things, kind of the standard pieces that are available out there. But then we go into, SEO, PPC, and that becomes a whole nother beast. It was actually great for us to watch the evolution of SEO, because we were such an early on website. Our SEO has always ranked us. When you search desert harvest, it's going to be the first thing that comes up. When you search aloe vera, we're going to be on that first page. And so, it's really about guiding that SEO strategy. But now we're on a whole new level, because our SEO strategy, which I'm actually working on right now, is completely changing because of AI and changing how the marketing, we're not just going to do PPC. We're not just going to do, email and social media marketing. We're going to have to look at how AI drives people to us and how AI is functioning on our website, targeting and driving customers to new options.
What's wild is we have gotten a handful, maybe even like a dozen people have like scheduled calls with our agency because ChatGPT told them to. Like,
wow.
It's an insane, I think I think that like something that's going to be on the horizon, careers are going to be built upon this idea of like AI optimization or just like to say whatever SEO is, but for these larger AI platforms, which, let's be real, ChatGPT is like the biggest and most adopted one.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean that the algorithms are completely different than if we're looking at targeting via SEO. Like it's a completely different algorithm that we have to look at when it comes to AI and how to target that AI so that when you get that response, it's going to include desert harvest.
What's your thoughts on this? And it's so funny that we like started here, which is like, do you think that the fundamentals of like marketing and advertising have really changed much in the last 30 or 50 years, heck, like since marketing was technically invented by Coca-Cola? Because the way that you started the business and found your first customers is the same basic story I've heard dozens of times. You used these forums, and people, more modern brands, have been using kind of the Facebook groups, just finding their people and talking to them and kind of doing the work that doesn't scale. I just think that these days, and please correct me if I'm wrong or put your own spin on this, but like, I think these days it's just like, it's the same tactics with new ways to do it, new technology and new tools. But it's always the same thing at the end of the day.
It is. It really, really is. The only thing that has evolved is the customers. Realistically, the tools, especially since the early 2000s, the tools have just evolved. But they're still the same tools. And I think that, since the birth of the internet, we're watching the same way. We're watching, mail marketing, cold calling marketing, all of that going out the window, as with internet evolved and e-commerce evolved in the 90s. And then you see this exact same trajectory throughout the entire 2000s. But the thing that you do see that completely starts to change is the consumer. The one thing is we've got Dr. Google. And you literally, they become so informed, but sometimes so informed to their own detriment. And so it's that plethora of information that you have got to educate your consumer. You can't just sell a product, like Fruit Loops and this whole red dye number 3 being banned yesterday and things like that. Like, you can't just follow the tried and true methods of, hey, I built this brand. Everybody loves Fruit Loops. I'm going to buy Fruit Loops forever. And this is what we're going to do. You have to change and adapt. I always say you have to adapt or die. And our consumers are becoming much more informed about what they're putting in their bodies, about how they're taking care of their bodies. And so no matter what you have technologically, even technology, when we look, we know that a lot of the times that the quality of maybe the TV that we get at Costco versus the quality of the TV we get at Best Buy, there might be a difference. And that's why you have such a difference in price and things like that. And so as consumers, we're we're learning the ways in which people are trying to target us. And so they are becoming more and more informed about your methodologies. So if you're using underhanded tactics or doing things to cheapen your product to create more revenue and capitalize on your consumer base, that's going to become harder and harder to do. And I think AI is going to make that even harder because versus having to search through mounds of data on the internet, it's going to bring it all right up there for you. And then you can decide based on that information what to do. But then you also have for us, one of the big things is aloe vera naturally has oxalates in it. And if you Google oxalates, you're going to be like, aloe vera is part of a high oxalate diet. But then for us, we have to then turn around and educate our consumers, not our product, not the way that we process it, not what we do. It now becomes a part of a low oxalate diet and things like that. So that's just an example of how we have to also combat misinformation that comes out on the internet or something that leads you down a rabbit hole. Like, you could look up any condition and it leads to cancer, it's that kind of thing. And so making sure that different ways to inform your consumers around what AI might be bringing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's the two things that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on is that education piece. It's like marketing 101 is just know, like, and trust. And once you get that consumer to that trust phase, they're more than likely going to make a purchase. And then the other thing is with AI, and you kind of mentioned underhanded tactics to make short-term gains. It's like anytime you make a shortcut, maybe you'll make a little bit more money, but it's not sustainable and it's maybe at the detriment of your business.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very, very much so. I have seen it time and time again with companies over 31 years where they have done one thing to cheapen or, our process for the processing for our aloe vera has not changed in over 31 years. And there is a reason. We know that it works. We know that it's effective, and we are not going to cheapen our brand or cheapen what we do. For us, it's always been about the consumer, meeting the unmet needs of our consumers and bringing out the best product possible that should go in their bodies. And I think that the more informed our consumers are going to be, the more that companies need to adhere to those ethics, those ethos, because like you said, in the short term, you might get some extra revenue, but in the long term, you're going to fail.
Absolutely, Heather. It's been wonderful talking to you. Now, is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think would resonate with our audience?
Finding your connection story, your connection to your consumers. We can throw out e-commerce businesses all day, every day, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on Shopify, whether it's creating your own website. But if you don't create that connection and a reason for your customers to connect with you and trust you, then you'll just be another fading story.
Absolutely. Now, if people are curious about the brand, curious about the products, where should they go? What should they do?
They can visit our website at desertharvest.com. We are also on Instagram at Desert Harvest Aloe Vera. Same with Facebook, all social. And definitely check us out. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out at any time. You can always call us 800-222-3901.
Awesome, Heather. I think you might be the first person to drop a 1-800 number on the podcast.
Look at me going old school.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks, Chase.
We can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own businesses. You can find all the links in the show notes. You can subscribe to the newsletter at honestycommerce.co to get each episode delivered right into your inbox. If you're enjoying this content, consider leaving a review on iTunes. That really helps us out. Lastly, if you're a store owner looking for an amazing partner to help you get your Shopify store to the next level, reach out to Electric Eye at electriceye.io/connect. Until next time.